$485 billion. Gone. Not stolen, not lost. Paid to 5 families across every single American war. And the craziest part? It was all legal. Every contract is public record. Every profit is documented. And it's still happening right now, today, while you read this. 5 names, 6 generations, and a business model so protected, so embedded in American power, that no one has ever gone to jail for it. Not once. Stay with me, because by the end, you will never look at a military budget the same way again. The business model nobody talks about, $816 billion. That is what America spent on its military in 2023 alone. 5 companies took $200 billion of that, 25 cents of every military dollar. Same families, same pattern, same result. They profit, you pay, soldiers die. This is not a theory. The contracts are public. The numbers are recorded. The pattern has repeated for 150 years straight. But here is what school never taught you. War is not just a political decision. War is a product, and somebody is always selling it. Most people think war profiteers are criminals hiding in shadows. Wrong. They operate in the open, fund universities, run charities, and get invited to the White House. The DuPont family. They sold gunpowder to both sides. One man arrived from France in 1800 with one skill: making explosives. By 1802, he had a factory on the Brandywine River in Delaware, close to Washington, close to power, far enough from cities that the explosions would not cause political problems. Smart location, smarter strategy. By the War of 1812, DuPont had its first military contract, and from that moment forward, a pattern locked into place. War starts. Government needs explosives. DuPont is ready. They get the contract. They expand. They profit. War ends. They keep everything. Then the next war starts, and they are first in line again. The Mexican-American War paid them over $1 million. That is $35 million in today's money. But the real prize was not the cash. It was the relationship. When you delivered in the last war, you are first in line for the next one. Every time. The Civil War changed everything. The Union needed gunpowder on a scale nobody had ever seen. 4 years, hundreds of battles, millions of rounds. DuPont's mills ran 24 hours a day. They produced over 4 million pounds of gunpowder, contracts worth $10 million, over $300 million today. But here's the detail they left out of your history book. The DuPont family opposed abolition. Some members quietly supported the Confederacy, but they sold gunpowder to the Union, because that is where the contracts were. Ideology did not matter. Profit did. And after the Union won, DuPont got credit for helping save the nation. The complicated truth got buried. The profit remained. Later in this video, you will see exactly how one of these families was caught selling technology to America's enemy during World War II, and nothing happened. Keep watching. World War I was the explosion, not of bombs, of wealth. Before America even entered the war, DuPont was selling explosives to Britain and France. When America joined in 1917, DuPont supplied 40% of all Allied explosives. Net earnings jumped from $5 million in 1914 to $82 million in 1918. That is over $1 billion in today's money. A 1,600% profit increase in 4 years. They did not give it back. They used it to build a chemical empire. Plastics, synthetics, Teflon. Industries that made billions more during peacetime. World War II brought explosives again, plus nylon for parachutes, plus the Manhattan Project. DuPont operated the plutonium facility at Hanford, Washington. Cost plus contract. Government paid all costs, plus guaranteed profit. DuPont could not lose money. Legally could not. Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan. Every conflict. DuPont or its successor companies were there. The DuPont family trust today is worth an estimated $30 billion. 6 generations removed from one French chemist with a gunpowder recipe, still living off war profits from 1802. You were taught that American companies won World War II through patriotism. Some of those same companies were simultaneously doing business with Nazi Germany. That is not a theory. That is what Senate investigations found. The Rockefellers. Control the fuel, control the war. John D. Rockefeller founded Standard Oil in 1870. By 1880, he controlled 90% of American oil refining. That was not a business. That was a chokehold on the American economy. When the U.S. Navy switched from coal to oil-powered ships in the 1890s, that chokehold became a military asset. The Spanish-American War of 1898 was small, short, but it taught Rockefeller one lesson that would define a century. Control the fuel, control the military, because no modern army moves without oil. World War War I proved it. Tanks, trucks, airplanes, ships, everything needed petroleum. Standard Oil had been broken up by antitrust action in 1911, but the successor companies, Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, were all still Rockefeller-controlled. They supplied fuel to America and the Allies. But here is the part that should make your jaw drop. Standard Oil's German subsidiary sold fuel to Germany at the same time, through neutral countries, technically legal because the companies were separate entities on paper. Not treason, business. Profit from both sides of the same war. World War II, same pattern. But this time the Senate noticed. Senator Harry Truman, before he became president, led an investigation. His committee found that Standard Oil of New Jersey had shared synthetic rubber patents with IG Farben, the German chemical giant, after the war had already begun. That technology helped Germany keep fighting longer. Truman's committee said clearly, Standard Oil damaged the American war effort. Nobody was prosecuted. The company was too important. The military needed the fuel. So the investigation was shelved. The contracts continued. The profits kept flowing. Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War. Every conflict burned oil. Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron were always the suppliers. The Rockefeller family wealth is estimated at $11 billion today, built on fuel that armies burned while fighting wars. The Morgan dynasty, they lent money to both sides too. Wars do not just need weapons and fuel, they need money. And the people who lend that money profit, whether the borrower wins or loses. They just need to be repaid. J.P. Morgan built the most powerful bank in America by 1900, and he understood one rule about wartime lending. Governments at war will borrow at any interest rate, because the alternative is losing. When World War I broke out in Europe in 1914, America was officially neutral. But Morgan lent Britain and France over $2 billion between 1914 and 1917. That is over $50 billion in today's money. The Allies spent that money buying weapons, food, and supplies, mostly from American companies. So American banks lent money to Allied governments who spent it buying from American companies. The money moved, but the profits stuck at both ends. Here is the detail that changes everything. Those loans made American neutrality impossible. By 1917, Britain and France owed so much to American banks that if they lost the war, they could not repay. American banks would collapse. The economy would crater. So when President Wilson asked Congress to declare war in April 1917, it was not only about democracy or German submarines. It was about protecting the financial investments of American banks. Senator George Norris of Nebraska said it out loud during the war debate. "We are going into war upon the command of gold. We are about to put the dollar sign on the American flag." He voted no. Congress voted yes. Morgan's loans were secured by American military power. After the war, Morgan profited again. Germany owed reparations. The Allies owed Morgan. Morgan arranged loans so Germany could pay reparations, which the Allies used to repay American banks. Morgan collected fees at every step. The Dawes Plan in 1924, the Young Plan in 1929, both structured by Morgan bankers. Billions in war debt refinanced, millions in fees collected. World War II, Morgan underwrote war bonds and treasury securities. The government borrowed massively to fund the war. Morgan collected fees on every issuance. After the war, Morgan-connected institutions helped administer the Marshall Plan that rebuilt Europe. Every conflict required financing. Morgan banks were always involved. The family fortune today is estimated at $30 billion, built on lending money for wars and collecting interest while soldiers paid the cost in blood. Lockheed Martin, the company that made itself impossible to cancel. The Lockheed brothers founded their aircraft company in 1912. By World War I, they were building planes for the military. Small contracts, but aviation was the future, and getting in early meant getting rich later. World War II was the real launch. Aircraft were decisive. Bombers, fighters, transports, all essential. Lockheed built the P-38 Lightning, over 10,000 produced. They built the Hudson Bomber, over 2,800 produced. Contracts worth hundreds of millions. But the real Lockheed innovation was not the planes. It was the strategy. They hired former military officers as executives. The generals who approved their contracts today became their employees tomorrow. They built factories in congressional districts where representatives needed jobs for voters. They made themselves politically impossible to remove. The C-5 Galaxy transport plane shows how the business model works. Initial contract in 1965, $2.1 billion. Actual cost at delivery, $5.3 billion. 150% over budget. Did Lockheed lose money? No. Cost plus contract. They billed all costs, plus guaranteed profit. The Pentagon could not cancel because they had already spent billions, so they kept paying. Lockheed kept profiting. and Congress kept approving it because the factory employed thousands in Georgia, a state with serious political weight. Lockheed merged with Martin Marietta in 1995 to form Lockheed Martin. Today they are the largest defense contractor in the world. $65 billion in 2023 revenue, 90% from government contracts. The F-35 fighter jet is the current version of this strategy. Original budget in 2001, $233 billion. Current estimated total cost, over $1.7 trillion. 7 times over budget, over 800 documented defects, years behind schedule. Is it canceled? No, because Lockheed built suppliers in 45 states. That means 90 senators have constituents whose jobs depend on the F-35. Voting against the F-35 means voting against jobs at home, so Congress keeps funding it. Lockheed keeps billing. Taxpayers keep paying. The pattern established in 1917 has never stopped. War is declared. Lockheed stock rises. Contracts are awarded. Costs overrun. Government pays. Shareholders profit. Repeat. Halliburton, where politics and war profit merged completely. Halliburton was founded in 1919 as an oil services company, but the founder understood early that military infrastructure, building bases, ports, and airfields, was even more profitable than oil wells, because governments at war always need it fast, and they have no time to shop around. By World War II, Halliburton was building military facilities. No bid contracts, cost-plus pricing, zero risk, all upside. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq. The pattern grew bigger each time. In Vietnam, Halliburton's subsidiary Brown & Root built roads, ports, and airfields throughout South Vietnam. The contracts were worth billions and awarded without competitive bidding. Why? Political connections. George Brown, the founder of Brown & Root, was a major donor to Lyndon B. Johnson for decades. When LBJ became president, Brown & Root got massive Vietnam contracts. Coincidence? The timing makes it hard to argue that. Then came the most documented version of this pattern in American history. Dick Cheney was Secretary of Defense during the Gulf War in 1991. Halliburton got contracts to build facilities in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. After the war, Cheney left government. In 1995, he became CEO of Halliburton. He ran the company for 5 years, growing its government contract portfolio. Then, in 2000, he became Vice President of the United States under George W. Bush. Then came Iraq and Afghanistan. Halliburton, through its subsidiary KBR, received contracts worth over $40 billion. No bid, cost plus, guaranteed profit. The Pentagon Inspector General found billions in waste and fraud. Meals billed for that were never served. Fuel deliveries charged for that never happened. Construction billed for that was never finished. Halliburton's response? War zones are chaotic. Some waste is inevitable. The government agreed and kept paying. Cheney had formally recused himself from contract decisions involving Halliburton. But from 2003 to 2008, Halliburton's government contracts increased by 400%. Their stock price tripled. When Cheney left office in 2009, he still held Halliburton stock options worth millions. This is not complicated. Company hires politicians. Politicians build relationships in government. War starts. Relationships become contracts. Profits are shared. Politicians retire wealthy. Companies get wealthier. Taxpayers pay the bill. The 7-step pattern. Every war, every time. Once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. It has repeated for 150 years. Same steps, same result. Step 1 is positioning before the war. All 5 companies built essential capacity during peacetime. When war began, they were ready. Competitors were not. No bid contracts went to the company already set up and proven. Step 2 is securing the first contract. Government needs supplies immediately. No time to bid. The already positioned company gets the contract, and the first contract makes every future contract easier, because you are the proven supplier. Step 3 is cost plus pricing. This is the engine of the entire model. The contractor bills all costs plus a guaranteed profit percentage. Zero financial risk. If costs rise, the government pays. If the project takes longer, the contractor makes more money. The incentive is to maximize costs, not minimize them. Step 4 is the budget overrun. The F-35 at 7 times budget, the C-5 at 150% over, the Zumwalt destroyer at 3 times original cost. This is not incompetence. It is the business model. Underbid to win the contract. Revise costs upward once the government has invested too much to cancel. Step 5 is hiring the regulators. When military officers retire, they go work for defense contractors. The general who approved Lockheed contracts becomes a Lockheed executive. The admiral who oversaw ship procurement joins a shipbuilding company. This revolving door ensures that the people awarding contracts today are building relationships that pay them personally tomorrow. Step 6 is lobbying for more conflict. Defense contractors fund think tanks. They donate to campaigns. They hire former generals to appear on news shows supporting military action. The Center for Strategic and International Studies and the American Enterprise Institute both receive contractor funding. Both consistently publish research supporting military intervention. In 2002, during the Iraq debate, contractor-funded organizations produced intelligence assessments supporting invasion. When the war was approved, those same organizations' funders received billions in contracts. Step 7 is diversifying the profit. War profits never stay in weapons. DuPont built a chemical empire. Rockefeller bought banks and real estate. Morgan financed peacetime industries. The money moves into assets that keep growing even after the war ends. This is how one-generation war profit becomes six-generation dynasty wealth. $816 billion military budget. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, General Dynamics, and Northrop Grumman took $200 billion of that, 25 cents of every military dollar. The F-35 program has suppliers in 45 states. That is intentional. It means 90 senators have constituents employed by a program that is 7 times over budget, with 800 documented defects. Voting against it means voting against jobs at home. The revolving door spins faster than ever. In any recent year, hundreds of senior Pentagon officials moved directly to defense contractor positions. The people who award the contracts today are auditioning for their next job with the companies receiving them. Contractor-funded think tanks are still publishing reports on which countries America should consider military action against. Defense stocks still rise when conflicts escalate. Cost-plus contracts are still standard. The pattern established by a French chemist with a gunpowder recipe in 1802 is running at full speed in 2024. The only question left: 5 families, 5 companies, 150 years. Every major American war, the same 7 steps, the same result. They profit, you pay. Soldiers die writing the real history with their lives, while shareholders write the financial reports with their gains. This is not a conspiracy. Conspiracies are hidden. This is documented, public, legal. The contracts are on file. The profits are in the annual reports. The revolving door appointments are announced in press releases. The system does not hide. It does not need to. Because the companies are too powerful, the politicians are too dependent, and the public has been too distracted to connect the dots. Until now, the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, Lockheed, Halliburton, 5 names, every war, same result. Bull Battle shows you how power actually works, because they will never teach you this in school. They will teach you these companies are patriotic, that they serve the nation, that anyone who questions them is a conspiracy theorist. But the contracts are public record. The pattern has repeated for 150 years, and it is repeating right now. 5 families, billions in profit, built on wars that killed millions. The receipts exist. You just read them.